if they do that, Gavin Newsom will outlaw Republicans in California, period.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that he already has. Like, it's a 48-4 map. It's that map.
Welcome to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM for Friday, October 17th. I'm Andrew Walworth, and joining me are RCP President and co-founder Tom Bevan and Washington Bureau Chief Carl Cannon. So Donald Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, turned himself in to federal authorities this morning at a Maryland courthouse. He was indicted just yesterday for allegedly keeping top secret documents at his home and sharing classified information with family members. He pleaded not guilty and was released. So, Tom, the president really hates this guy, but Bolton has made more than a few statements that are coming back to haunt him. Here's just one that is making the rounds. This was back in 2017 when discussing Hillary Clinton's classified server scandal with Lou Dobbs.
As I've said before, I believe it still to this day. If I had done at the State Department what Hillary Clinton did, I'd be wearing an orange jumpsuit now.
So, Tom, what do you make of that statement? And how much trouble do you think John Bolton is really in?
It might be kind of prescient. We'll see. Look, I know everyone's painting this as oh, it's part of Trump's revenge tour. There are a couple of different circumstances in this case. Number one, this was a career prosecutor who brought this case, not, Lindsay Halligan, who's recently installed. Number two, this was a case that existed and was being pursued under the Biden administration. And according to reporting, they're the ones who shut it down for, quote, political reasons. So, and we don't know much more about that than just that the Biden administration decided not to pursue this case. But apparently there is evidence. Now, Bolton says, look, and his lawyers say, these are just diary entries, and diary entries are, not classified material and are different than having classified material. We'll see. I mean, the court's going to sort it out. They're going to hear the case, and so he'll get his day in court. But if he is, in fact, if he did keep, classified information in his home, and if he was doing so because he wanted to, write a book or whatever the case may be, that could be very well a crime. And it's a crime that if John Bolton or Hillary Clinton or you or I or Carl or anyone, if we were doing that, we would probably expect to be prosecuted as well.
Carl, how do you see it?
Well, I don't know what the facts are of the case. I'm, innocent until proven guilty it's a phrase.
You're innocent until proven guilty.
It's a phrase I coined a few years ago. We don't operate that way anymore in this country, but this, and the other thing I'll say is that we have too much classified information. I mean, it's a time I'd want to know what the information was. I'd like a court, if they're going to try this man and try and take away his freedom and put him in prison, I'd like to know what these secrets are, why they're so important, who classified the documents. And before I would comment on it, John Bolton is, a very political person, and he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's turned on Trump, but he's a professional. I'd be surprised if he was actually, peddling, this idea of top secret, you're not supposed to share it with the enemies. If you're taking it home, you're taking notes and then you're putting in your book, it seems like pretty small potatoes. The problem, of course, if you're loyal, if you're a person who's sympathetic to President Trump, is this is exactly what they went after him for. Trump took documents down to Mar-a-Lago. He thought he was entitled to them. He wanted to rebut some of the things being written about him in books by people like Mark Milley and others. And, they went after him with a vengeance and they tried to criminalize it. So I think that's what obviously galvanized the president on this stuff, because he felt he was a victim of it. But now maybe Bolton's a victim of it too. It strikes me as problematic, and because he's become in the crosshairs of the Justice Department. Andy, you say it's an old case, but now it's new. And here's a guy who's an enemy of Trump's yet again being indicted.
Yeah. So this is what Bolton said. He said, my book was reviewed and approved by the appropriate experienced career clearance officials. When my email was hacked, remember this back in 2021, the FBI was made fully aware. In 4 years of the prior administration, after these reviews, no charges were ever filed. Then came Trump 2, who embodies what Joseph Stalin's head of secret police once said, You show me the man, I'll show you the crime. Tom, it does seem that one of the differences between this and some of the other prosecutions is this is really, he hates Bolton because of policy differences and criticism. It's not, Bolton wasn't like Letitia James or James Comey sort of involved, he wasn't a legal official involved in trying to either prosecute Trump or, deny his election or whatever. So it does seem to me that it is slightly different in that regard. And then to Carl's point, this is what they tried to get Trump on. Trump dismissed it then, but now wants to get Bolton for the exact same crime that he dismissed himself from, if you see what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, there is a certain element of the shoe being on the other foot, but I was thinking about this too earlier. This is part of Trump 1 coming back to sort of haunt Trump 2 a little bit. Why did Donald Trump hire John Bolton in the first place? Why was he ever inside the White House working for this guy? I mean, he wasn't aligned on policy matters. He was a notorious sort of neocon hawk who wanted to, wage war. And beyond that, he was known. Carl said it sort of kindly that he was, rubbed some people the wrong way. Put differently, he is kind of an asshole. And most people thought he's really abrasive guy, arrogant, full of himself. Thought he, and
well, that's not a crime, Tom.
Yeah,
it's not a crime,
DC,
but the point is like it was well known. It's like, why would you bring that kind of person into your organization to be one of your advisors, especially if he doesn't agree with you on policy and he's going to be feeding you policy prescriptions that aren't aligned with what you believe in. I mean, it really was astonishing that Trump hired him in the first place. And so, yes, and in that sense, this is a little bit different from the other cases. And maybe that's why Trump, hates him so much, is because he was maybe he hates himself a little bit for hiring the guy in the first place and giving him the sort of platform to then turn on Trump as he did after he left office.
I don't know. He fits a certain model for a national security advisor. There have been others. I'm thinking it was bigger than Brzezinski or Henry Kissinger. I mean, there are national security advisors who are these sort of quirky academics who come in. Presidents sometimes like that, I guess. That's I don't think he was that far beyond the pale. And I mean, he's a very highly respected person. Yeah, he's a neocon for sure. But
so what was the neocon doing in Trump's first administration?
Next thing you're going to say, he should have been indicted. The enhancement should be the mustache. I mean, nobody likes his mustache, but these aren't crimes, Tom.
I don't care about his mustache.
Okay. All right.
So, Carl, what happens next with this? I mean, is this the end of lawfare from the administration, or are other shoes going to fall here?
Well, Adam Schiff sure hopes it's the end, but I'm not so sure myself.
That would
Schiff's got the preemptive pardon, though, right?
Yeah.
That's but I don't know if it covers mortgage fraud.
Oh, interesting.
And this administration has a very expansive view of mortgage fraud.
Yeah. Well, the Wall Street Journal didn't like this indictment, and they said there's little doubt that the underlying motivation for this prosecution is retribution. Carl, do you see it that way? Do you think it's just retribution, or do you think there's really something here?
Carl would write the same thing if someone tried to indict one of our columnists. I mean, why?
Well, wait a minute. Andy, I don't really know that because I don't really know how solid this case is. But I will say this in terms of the retribution. I don't know what 100% of what President Trump's motives is, but he doesn't hide them. He talks about this openly. He tweets out on whatever it's called when you're on Truth Social, and he posts these things. We got to get these people. They're criminals. They're radicals. We have to go after them. He's saying that he's doing these things. He's sort of publicly ordering that these people be prosecuted. So I think that weakens the case and it makes people suspicious that that's what it is. I don't know if that's the whole thing that it is, but when the president says things like this, if I were a judge, I would be very skeptical that the guy was being treated fairly by the Justice Department. I think some of these cases are going to be thrown out because they're obviously political and the revenge thing, even if that's not the whole thing here, because you pointed out this case was alive in the previous administration, it's been alive in the Justice Department. But once the president weighs in and says he wants to get these people, I think that taints it.
we'll see what happens. John Bolton's going to get his day in court, and that's, I mean, for the Trump administration, for Donald Trump, if he's really, he didn't send 28 armed officers to haul John Bolton out of bed like Roger Stone was, right? He was able to surrender himself and walk from the car right into the courthouse and make his case. So he'll get his day in court and let the chips fall where they may.
All right. Well, good. Personal triumph today. We got through this segment without either of you saying no one's above the law.
But you just said it, Andy.
I am trying to ban that from our podcast.
Andy, no one's above the law.
Oh, there you have it. Guys, lots of action when it comes to a couple of these races we're watching closely. It's less than 3 weeks away, elections in New York, Virginia, and New Jersey. Let's start with last night's mayoral debate in New York City. Here's a few bits from that three-way face-off between Zoran Mondani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa. And we start with Mondani's response to Cuomo's charge that Mondani is taking advantage of New York's rent control rules.
You've heard it from Andrew Cuomo that the number one crisis in this city, the housing crisis, the answer is to evict my wife and I. He thinks you address this crisis by unleashing my landlord's ability to raise my rent. If you think that the problem in this city is that my rent is too low, vote for him. If you know the problem in this city is that your rent is too high, vote for me.
I was the HUD secretary. I built affordable housing all across this nation. I built affordable housing in this city when I was in my 20s. I know how to get it done.
Well, Zoran, boy, your fantasies are never going to come about in terms of funding everything you want that's going to be free. It's a fantasy. Let's deal with the reality.
In other words, what the Assemblyman said is he has no experience.
What I don't have in experience, I make up for in integrity. And what you don't have in integrity, you could never make up for in experience.
Yes.
Just some bites from last night. Pretty zingy stuff. What'd you make of the debate? Did anything change?
I don't think anything changed. We talked about this yesterday, that Mamdani is quick on his feet. He would give as good as he got. And he did that last night, I think. He's very sort of well polished and well rehearsed, and he had his lines. And like I said, I didn't watch the debate live. I saw some clips of it, but I didn't see any car crash moment that's going to cripple his campaign. I mean, I think he did what he needed to do, which was get by. And he's so far ahead at this point with just 3 weeks left. It would take a real shift in the political landscape for him to somehow lose this race, I think. And, you just listening to Cuomo, I mean, he's just sort of old and tired. And I think New Yorkers have had it with him. I just don't know that he's got the juice to get it done. So I think Mamdani did fine. I think he's going to be the next mayor of New York City.
Well, Cuomo didn't see this guy coming. He looked around the field. He looked at this field. There was no Democrat in there with anything like his name recognition. No Democrat in the field. This is at the beginning as the field was forming, with his level of experience, with his level of talent in politics. Or so he thought. But there was one guy, this upstart, 33, I think he turns 34, maybe tomorrow, Mamdani. He's come out of nowhere. And Tom says he seems tired. He seems like yesterday's story. And that's, the polls show that a plurality of New Yorkers feel that way too. But as you listen to the substance, he's asked about substance and he gives a glib insult in response. But if he wants to really freeze rents in New York, that's going to have ripple effects down the way. It's going to be, nobody's going to be able to build. There's going to be hard to build.
It's going to be a disaster.
It's going to be hard to build new housing in the city. And I don't know that Cuomo made that point effectively, but if it comes to the housing and building housing, Andrew Cuomo's right. He was at HUD. He has built housing. He knows a lot more about it than Mamdani. I just don't know if it matters at this point.
Yeah. I built affordable housing in my 20s. It's like, I just don't know if that's going to be enough to convince voters that they should skip Mamdani and vote for him.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a bunch of it. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched enough to see. Mamdani is a gifted politician, and just he had his answers. He was glib. It was a great performance, and I think he helped himself. He went in there. I was thinking he just had to play rope-a-dope. He just didn't have to make any mistakes. I actually think he advanced his chances last night. even if he needed that. Hey, there was another debate in Virginia. Two candidates for attorney general faced off. Jay Jones was attacked. He's the Democrat for those hateful emails he sent. We all know those, when he talked about shooting the Republican State House Speaker and about watching his children die. Good stuff. So here's a bit of the GOP candidate, Jason Miyares. But I'm going to start with Jay Jones once more, having to apologize for these texts.
Let me be very clear. I am ashamed. I am embarrassed. And I'm sorry.
Jay, if you were to apply to be a line prosecutor in not just my office, any attorney general office in the country, you would not pass a background check.
We have to hold this administration accountable, and as your attorney general, I will do just that. Jason hangs out with Donald Trump at MAGA rallies. I will see Jason Miyares and Donald Trump in court as your next attorney general.
He wants to fight the fights in Washington. My interest is fighting the fights and putting the bad guys away out of our streets. That has been our record.
So, Carl, that's your state. Those polls, I guess, have tightened, and I guess Miyares is ahead in some of them. What do you make of the debate, and do you think that that Jones, got himself out of the box he's in?
Well, I found those. I'm a Virginia voter. I found those texts despicable. But when you say "I'm sorry," "I'm embarrassed," "I'm ashamed," there's nothing grudging about that apology. He's now said what he should say, and then he goes on, but I'll attack Trump, and that may be a winning message in a Democratic primary, and maybe it's a winning message in a state where so many federal workers are worried about losing their jobs, but it's not really what we want him. It's not really what swing voters want him doing, and I think that thing's going to be very close. I think I think Spanberger is going to win, but I think the AG's race is going to be exceedingly close.
Well, Tom, one thing I noticed about it, I mean, Miyares was much more disciplined than when some Earl Sears was last week in her debate, and he sort of sat back and he let Jones, twist in the wind a little bit. Seemed to be a more effective debate style, at least. But could this affect the top of the ticket? Do you think it hurts Spanberger that this guy's still out there and she's still being asked about him?
Yeah, I mean, look, the polls have definitely closed. Miyares is now ahead in our average. The last two polls have him leading Jay Jones. He was not leading prior to this whole thing. The top of the ticket, the race has tightened as well. Although Spanberger's still ahead, but her lead has gone from 5 to 3 points in one poll, and I think 7 to 5 or something. So, she's still ahead by low single digits in most polls, and I think in our average, but that's tighter than it was before the text came out. I think she has.
You think he's a drag? You think he's a
yeah,
drag
absolutely.
on the
I think he's a drag on the ticket. I think the fact that she won't tell him to drop out of the race, I think has hurt her. She's tried to have it both ways. I condemn the text, but I'm still supporting him. I think that has turned off some voters, maybe not some Democrats, but certainly some independents.
Tom, hate the sin, love the sinner.
Right. I mean, my problem with this is, and fine, he apologized. We don't have, and I've lamented this before, there's nothing that's disqualifying anymore for politics. You can just, you can say you want to kill people in private messages, and that's fine, apparently, if you apologize. There was the woman who was doing the, OnlyFans thing. No shame there. She stayed running. Blamed Republicans. Said it was Republicans who had, were trying to, dox her and all this stuff when she in fact put the stuff out. So where are the people? What do we have to do in our private lives or public lives, when we're running for office that would cause us to say, you know what, gosh, I need to get out of this race?
You can get convicted. You can be accused and lose a civil case once you're accused of sexual assault and have to pay millions of dollars and still win election.
All right, guys, we got a little time left in this block. I do want to get to the New Jersey governor's race, which is really tightening up. The RCP average has the Democrat Cheryl over Chiarelli by only 4 points. And then there's this new Quinnipiac poll shows Chiarelli leading among independents by 6 points. Republicans make up 30%. I'm sorry, no. Democrats are 38% registered voters, Republicans 25%. So the independent is a big big part of the electorate, and he's up 5 points among independents. Tom, what's going on in New Jersey?
Well, as we've talked about, I mean, New Jersey is a state that has elected Republican governors in the past: Christie Todd Whitman, Chris Christie, and
Tom Kaine
has also moved Republican over the last couple cycles. And so, Chitterelli only lost his last race by 3.5 points. That's about where he's at right now. And if he's able to continue to build a little momentum here toward the end, this could be a really close race. I mean, I think Democrats still, you got to say they're the favorites. Mikey Sherrill's a favorite in this race, but an upset here is not out of the question.
Yeah. Carl, Obama endorsed Sherrill yesterday. Trump is going to do tele rallies apparently for Chitterelli. Does that this kind of endorsement help? And where is Joe Biden? Why is Joe Biden not endorsing anybody?
Joe Biden? I don't know about Joe Biden, but Barack Obama.
Why is Kamala Harris not out there campaigning for Mikey Sherrill?
Barack Obama is still an important name in the Democratic Party and carries some weight. Trump is obviously a force in the Republican Party. But the problem there for the Republicans in that state is Donald Trump did much better than he did in 2024 than he'd done in his two previous races in New Jersey. But he still lost by, I think, 6 points, Tom? New Jersey?
I have to look. Yeah,
yeah,
something like that.
I mean, so that's a lot to make up. And what's so interesting about New Jersey is that it's been hard for Trumpy Republicans to win without Donald Trump on the ballot. That would be, if he could pull that off, that would be a hell of a story, and it would tell us that maybe we shouldn't take the midterms for granted.
We being who take the midterms for granted?
The media.
The media shouldn't take them for granted.
We shouldn't assume that Democrats will recapture the House if they can't hold New Jersey.
Yeah.
You agree, Tom?
Yeah. No, look, I think, Democrats had a lead in the generic ballot of a couple of points, but I think the midterms are still, at least the House is still very much in play. I think Republicans have a chance to hold on to their majority there, certainly. And I think that, the Senate's sort of a different animal. I think Democrats are going to be hard pressed to win the amount of seats that they need to take control of that chamber.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Sean Trende is going to be here, so we can talk more about the upcoming midterms and especially about redistricting. So don't go away. We'll be back with more right after this. Joining us is Sean Trende, RCP's senior elections analyst. Sean, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Sean, I wanted to talk to you because the Supreme Court on Wednesday heard these arguments in this important case that centers on whether to scale back protections against racial discrimination when it comes to redistricting. One of the reasons this is a big deal is because it deals with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and could have major implications for how districts are redrawn throughout the South. So what happened and why is this important?
Well, boy, did you take the progressive frame on this, that it's about scaling back protections on discrimination, because I think the lawyers for Louisiana would take the point of view that no, the discrimination comes from drawing on the basis of race. It's basically the argument over affirmative action transported to the redistricting world. Basically, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act prohibits any law that has the purpose or effect of denying basically equal opportunity to participate in the political process on account of race. And for years, that's been used to demand the creation of districts where a Black or Hispanic or Asian candidate of choice can win, provided some kind of esoteric requirements are made to show racially polarized voting, show that you can draw a district that's reasonably configured, and so forth. And so you can see how that runs smack into a prohibition from the 14th Amendment on racial gerrymandering, taking race into account. So what's happened is that states who are redistricting have been kind of walking this tightrope where if you use race too much and you don't have a good basis in the Voting Rights Act, your map's a racial gerrymander. If you don't use race enough, and the jingles factors are present, as those conditions are called, then you violated the Voting Rights Act. And it's the reason that states in the South are it's one of the reasons states in the South are almost continuously embroiled in litigation every redistricting cycle.
So does this clarify that at all?
It could. There's a lot of options available to the court. The most kind of strongest option is to just say Section 2 is no longer operative. It doesn't make sense in a world where, Wesley Hunt wins in a 67% white district in Texas, or where Tim Scott's a senator from South Carolina. So we're just not going to allow race to predominate in the drawing of any district, period, full stop. That would be, and there's some things that have happened that have kind of improved since argument, kind of increased the chances, I think, that that's going to be the outcome. There's other things, though, that the court could do. Some middle grounds have been offered, kind of strengthening the test that's been employed, allowing consideration of politics for drawing the maps. So, part of what's happened is that a lot of this litigation has just become a proxy for politics. Democrats want Democratic districts, and minority voters tend to prefer Democrats. So the Voting Rights Act requires the drawing of at least some districts in the South that'll elect Democrats. And so one option before the court is we'll just consider politics or incumbency protection a legitimate redistricting factor. And if that's what this is really about, not race, then go ahead. But it could be an absolute earthquake.
Sean, what do you make of? I know Ketanji Brown Jackson has received some blowback for this, but her argument was that Black voters, minority voters, this should be that they're it's like the ADA, that they're disabled, that they need this protection to provide them equal access to voting. Otherwise, if they don't have it, I mean, I guess our argument is that's why this is needed in perpetuity.
Yeah, I think there are some unfortunate. There are better analogies she could have drawn than the Americans with Disabilities Act, but that's kind of the point of view of the Democrats or of minority advocates, is that, look, if we don't have the Voting Rights Act, Republicans in the South are going to be able to run roughshod over minority districts. You could draw a 7-0 Republican map in Alabama. You could practically draw, I think it's possible to draw a completely Republican state Senate in Alabama. And so as long as blacks are preferring Democrats, they're going to be completely shut out of the political process. I don't think that's a frivolous argument. I think the counter is, well, that's politics. There are no Republicans in the Massachusetts delegation, in part because of how the lines are drawn there. You're basically, with this argument, racializing what is at its core a political argument, is the counter to that.
Sean, what did you hear during oral arguments I'm asking you to read the tea leaves here, that suggest maybe the judges are leaning one way or the other, the justices?
It was the consensus seems to be that it was a very sloppy argument. Mm-hmm. Obviously the three liberals are content with the status quo. Justice Thomas and Alito are ready to go and strike down Section 2, but that's not anything we didn't know walking into argument. And the justices who are really in play, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Robertson, Barrett, didn't really tip their hat. But there's a case before the Eighth Circuit that lays a foundational challenge to the Voting Rights Act. That the Eighth Circuit ruled that private citizens can't sue under the Voting Rights Act. And so right now in Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota, private citizens cannot bring a lawsuit under the Voting Rights Act. That was supposed to be considered in a few weeks, and the justices took it off the calendar. The only reason I can think of to take it off the calendar is that it's going to be moot because there isn't going to be a Voting Rights Act. Justice Kavanaugh there was a big case where everyone got excited because the justices upheld the Voting Rights Act with Alabama back in 2022. I think no one read, or they didn't want to take seriously, Justice Kavanaugh's concurring opinion, which said, look, if you kind of present me with this argument that the Voting Rights Act has sort of timed out because conditions have changed, I'm all ears. That to me was a shot across the bow, and it's one that I think conservative lawyers picked up on, and Democrats just kind of glossed over.
To this point about the Voting Rights Act, in particular, I guess Section 2 you're referring to. This is what the New York Times said. They said that without Section 2, Republicans could eliminate upward of a dozen Democratic-held districts across the South. So where the rubber meets the road here, I mean, how many districts would go Republican if this Supreme Court decision goes through?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you note there is the framing, which is it's not districts that give minorities representation, it's Democratic districts. And again, that's the Republican frame, that this is ultimately all about politics anymore. But yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, some of the districts it mentions, I don't think it's applicable because I don't think there's voting rights protections, for example, for that first district in North Carolina, doesn't meet those jingle standards. But and same thing with South Carolina. They could do away with Clyburn's district if they want to take the political heat right now. But certainly like 2 districts in Alabama, 2 districts in Louisiana, district in Mississippi, maybe a district in Memphis. I don't know if how badly you can gerrymander it there. District in Southwest Georgia. Like there's definitely probably 10 seats that Republicans could legislate out of existence if they wanted to.
If they do that, Gavin Newsom will outlaw Republicans in California, period.
Well, so that's the thing, though, is that he already has. Like it's a 48-4 map. That map is actually way beyond what Republicans have drawn elsewhere. Like it's giving California Democrats 90% of the seat off of 58% of the vote. Like there's no comparison in Republican maps, in part because the Voting Rights Act limits what they can do.
And this will take some time, but I'm wondering we talked about the midterms a little bit in the previous segment. In terms of the upcoming midterms, how big a factor will these redrawn districts be when it comes to the final tally? I mean, is this really, could the Republicans do this to a sufficient degree over the next couple months that would actually sort of change the results of the midterms?
Yes. So they're already on their way, right? You're talking probably 3 to 5 seats in Texas, a seat in Missouri, 2 in Indiana. They're talking about Kansas and Nebraska. But when you start adding in, it depends when the court rules. Because if the court rules in June, that's almost certainly too late. But in the past, when the court has held over a case for consideration on a bigger question, like Citizens United or Roe v. Wade or some of these other cases where it's done so, the decision has come down pretty quickly because they've already had the arguments. Everyone already kind of knows, and the justices have had a long time to think about it. So if they rule in like January or February, which is conceivable, the southern states could probably get this done in relatively short order.
Despite what's going to happen in California.
I mean, it's 4 seats. We're talking 4 to 5 seats in California. Okay. That basically neutralizes Texas.
Okay.
Then you're talking like I said, 2 seats in Alabama, 1 in Mississippi, 2 in Louisiana, 1 in Georgia, probably 3 in Florida. They're going to do another one in North Carolina. You've got 2 in Indiana, 1 in Missouri. That's 13 seats, and I know I'm missing some.
And Sean, there's no Democrats there's no blood to squeeze from the stone in the Democratic states, right? They've already got about as far as they could go.
I mean, maybe you can draw Illinois to be
get a seat in Illinois.
Yeah, but the other thing is that, and this is something that Republicans deal with. I mean, you could have drawn another Democratic seat in a Republican seat in the Houston area pretty easily, except there's this kind of wall of incumbents that prevent the 7th from being taken out. And at a certain point, you start to run into incumbents who become unhappy about the way their districts are drawn. Even if the Voting Rights Act is overturned, like, are the 3 African American representatives from Chicago are they going to be willing to risk their seats to have them diluted to 30% black districts, where they won't lose the general, but maybe they would lose a primary? They've been bacon mandered into, all the way down to East St. Louis. But incumbents are real limiting factors on how far you can gerrymander. And I don't think there's much more that Democrats can do.
Well, they could get 1 more seat in Maryland. I know that if they really tried, they could get Andy Harris.
But they tried
Courts threw
that,
it
and
out. Yeah.
the court threw it out. Like they have
Yeah.
a court order prohibiting them from doing it.
I'm not sure that'll stop them from trying again.
Governor Healy's going to squeeze another seat out of Massachusetts 9-0 map.
That's right. She's rooting for the census to be redone.
So Sean, so how do you see the midterms at this point shaping up?
I mean, it depends on, look, if Republicans, I went and did some kind of back of the envelope math. And if Republicans get everything they seem to want to get, and if they can get with the VRA, you're talking about making the median district in Congress something like an R+3 district, which means Trump won it by about 8 points.
Wow.
And so the best case scenario for Democrats would be sweeping all the districts up to those that Trump won by 8 points. And that is a monumental task. And if they lose one of them, that means they have to start going into the Trump +9 districts. And if they lose, 10 of those below, if Fitzpatrick holds on in Pennsylvania, you start having to talk about Trump +8, 9, 10, 11 districts. So the Republicans really can insulate themselves from a pretty substantial Democratic wave, which I actually think is kind of a bad thing because I like democracy. And I think the House of Representatives is supposed to be responsive to political waves. But it's where we're headed.
My last question on this then is, what about the Senate?
Well, you can't gerrymander the Senate. So that's, unless you add DC and Puerto Rico states. You were talking about the generic ballots at like 2 or 3 points right now. And let's assume that Democrats hold on in Michigan and Georgia. And Georgia is actually, the polling I've seen, like OSOF is well below 50%, or OSOF, I don't know. But let's say they hold on. So Cooper wins North Carolina. I think he's the favorite. Let's say Mills or Planter wins in Maine, which I think is tougher than people assume.
I agree.
Democrats still need 2 seats. And after those 2 seats, like we're talking
Texas?
Texas, okay, Alaska, Iowa, Ohio, like you're
Florida?
really going Florida. You're really going to pull off those seats in a year where Democrats are only winning the generic ballot by 3 points. Like it would take a wave. And they have to win 2 of them. So I'm not going to say no, but I think it's pretty slim pickings for Democrats there.
All right. Well,
Sean, before we let you go real quickly,
go ahead.
New Jersey and Virginia, we were talking about those earlier in the show. The polls seem to be tightening. Any upsets in the offing?
I would bet on the Republican in that Attorney General's race. I think
In Virginia,
yeah. I think I'd probably bet on the Democrats on the other ones. But look, it's a year. It's a Democratic state in a year where there's 2 Democratic states in a year where there's Republican presidents. Like those are not supposed to be close races,
right?
And if they're close, that even if the Democrats pull them off. If they're under 5 points, I think it's a flashing red warning sign.
All right. Well, Sean, always good stuff. Thanks for being here. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Tom and Carl. We've been joined by Sean Trende. He's our senior elections analyst. Great to have him on the show. We'll be back with more right after these words. Welcome back to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. It is Friday, so it is time for
TGIF.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
Tom, it's once again time for story from the week that caught your eye.
Well, I was conflicted this week. I had a bunch, I was going to go non-political and do my Mariners, who have blown a 2-0 lead against the Blue Jays. You cannot be serious, Seattle. Come on. But they're playing tonight and they still got a chance to hold on. So maybe they'll be my you cannot be serious next week if they blow this. But earlier this week on The View, Joy Behar said, and they were having this discussion about Republicans, and she said, I think we should have more Republicans on the show, but they don't want to come on. They're scared of us. And Riley Gaines, who's the swimmer and now opinion, person, contributor to Fox News, who swam against Leah Thomas, said she actually was scheduled to be on The View. She was pitched to be on The View, and they said no. And then Carol Markowitz, who's a conservative columnist for the New York Post, who wrote a book, said she was rejected from The View. Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, who did that documentary, What is Woman? He was rejected by The View. And Clay Travis said that he was also rejected by The View and that he stands ready to go on the show at any time. So I'm not sure that Republicans are so scared of the ladies on The View. And I wonder how many others are out there that the producers, for whatever reason, decided that they didn't want to have conservatives on that show because they literally have no Republicans or conservatives on that show almost ever. So, Joy Behar, please, you cannot be serious.
Carl, what do you got?
Well, mine was it's a arrest by ICE of a person, undocumented immigrant in Illinois, in Tom's state. He's a police officer at a suburban police department. He came over. He's from, I think he may be Serbian. He's from Montenegro, actually, and he's been here 10 years. And he showed a picture, handsome young guy. I assume he married here, and he's an American now, but apparently he overstayed his visa and never got his papers. And he was hired as a police officer last year or earlier this year. And the ICE raided him. I don't know how they got tipped off this. It struck me as they were probably after somebody else and they found this guy. I don't know how it happened. ICE is never forthcoming about that. But then ICE and the White House spun it. They were bragging about this. They spun it as in J.B. Pritzker's America, criminal illegal aliens are given guns and taxpayers' money. This guy is not a criminal. He was catching criminals. He's a police officer. And this really showed not only the bankruptcy of this policy, the capricious way it's being carried out, but really ugliness on the part of the White House and the Department of Homeland Security. And so when you say a guy's a criminal illegal alien, and because you're mad at J.B. Pritzker, I certainly understand why they're mad at J.B. Pritzker. And he shouldn't, what he's done is, in my view, destabilizing to democracy, setting himself up in opposition to the federal government. But taking it out on a young policeman and pretending you care about law and order, you cannot be serious.
Well, all right. Well, mine is about the laboratories of democracy out there, which are our states. There's this pretty interesting idea that's percolating out there at the state level. Ohio is considering legislation that would declare AI systems non-essential entities and ban them from gaining legal personhood. So basically, this new law is designed to preclude Ohioans from marrying their AI lovers. It also, this is a true story. It would also keep AI systems from marrying each other. I'm not sure how that works, but I guess
incest.
that's something we have to worry about. It also means that you can't assign power of attorney to your AI partner. And if the bill passes, Ohio joins Utah, where a similar law has already passed. Missouri is considering similar legislation. And so when I read this, first I thought, oh, well, this might be, legislative overreach. But then I found out this. A recent YouGov poll found that 25% of young Americans believe AI has the potential to replace real-life romantic relations. I actually want to congratulate the state legislatures for getting ahead of the trend here. And for those of you who think AI can replace a spouse, just keep swiping left. It doesn't work that way. You cannot be serious, although apparently some of you are. Guys,
Well done, Andy.
We're going to leave it there. That's our program for the week. If you're on the apps or YouTube, leave us a comment, subscribe. Be back here on Monday on SiriusXM, wherever you watch or listen to us. I'm Andrew Walworth. On behalf of Tom, Carl, Phil, Sean, and everyone here at RCP who's appeared this week, thanks for listening. We'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend.